Welcome to episode 2 of the Autograph University Masterclass. I'm Matt Raymond. This is the web show for autograph collectors. We bring in experts, industry insiders to help you improve your collection and meet celebrities. We have an awesome guest on, Andrew George, based out of Rhode Island. He graphs all around New England, so you're going to get a new perspective here. He's going to drop a lot of knowledge. Let's get right into it. I have a great guest on today's show. Andrew George is a Rhode Island-based grapher. He's putting up huge numbers. He had a huge 2012. Derek Jeter, Peyton Manning, Roger Clemens, Joe Namath, Jack Nicholson, Drew Brees are just some of the big names that he's graphed in the last 12 months. And 2013 is already off to a huge start for him. We're going to learn a lot from him. So, Andrew, thank you so much for joining us today.
Not a problem. Big fan of Autograph University, so glad you got in touch with me. And local guy, obviously being from Boston. So
thanks a lot. Yeah, so I feel kind of bad because I feel like this is the first time we've really chatted, and we have to have come across each other, outside the hotel somewhere in Boston. I know I've made my way down to Providence from time to time. So long overdue. Thanks for joining us. Good to finally make a connection.
Yeah, nice to meet you as well, finally.
Yeah. So I've been following what you're doing over on the sports graphing message board, and the people who are readers of Autograph U, and who are watching and listening to this I'll sound like a broken record because I tell people, go join these communities. You can learn so much by following people like you, or you're posting your successes, things like that. Can you talk about kind of how you got involved in this online community and kind of what you see the benefits are online, and also going out and developing that offline community as well? Because I know you're networking out in the field. You have to do that just from a word of mouth and getting information and building those relationships.
Right. Well, being from, Rhode Island's a small state, and you wouldn't think there's a lot of opportunities, being around here. But, when I first got into the hobby, there was a few locals who actually were on the site and just mentioned, when you first get into it, it's in person, but when you start off in a small state, through the mail is a good way to get started, getting some good graphs. And so, you go through the mail. Sportscollectors.net is one of the first sites that come across.
I'm on there as well, yep.
Right, and I actually used to be on there for a little bit. But you see, you Google stuff, obviously. You Google, through the mail autographs, in-person autographs, and you find people's blogs, and then you see some advertisements up. And I found Sportsgraph on the one that I'm on, you're on as well, and probably some of the viewers maybe watching this are on. It actually was SACE.com, I believe, SASC, before it was sports graphing. Yep. So I actually got on there right before it changed hands, right around that same time where it changed owners and it changed the name and everything. But it was predominantly like a through the mail site originally, so that's how I came across it. And being a part of an online community overall, I'll speak briefly on it, I guess, is certainly it can broaden your horizons. You see, if you're doing through the mail, you get to see what everyone else is getting.
Sure, yeah.
Signing, currently, obviously with spring training coming up, people are big on doing spring training in the mail. And for in person, as long as people are active, you get an idea of players' habits, up to date. I mean, when I first joined the site, a lot more people, I think, were active in terms of giving out information I saw this, this NBA team, and this player signed like this, and this player signed this many. So you get an idea of the habits that guys have.
Yeah, I mean, I know that just, using it, I've not printed out photos for people, or, I know I can, I don't typically do big, multiples, but you get an idea of with the types of items people are signing, how often they're signing. So, exactly. I mean, totally spot on. I mean, I think it's a great source of information, and I think people are posting cool stories as well. So I think the two sites you mentioned, sportsgraphing.com and sportscollectors.net, and I'll link to it to both of them in the show notes. You know, I think, you know, just from an information standpoint, you're going to reduce kind of your waste, whether it's, you know, printing stuff out, going for people who, you know, are not going to sign, and it opens you up to, you know, so many more opportunities that are not on your radar. So that's awesome. I wanted to ask you about, you know, because we're both from a similar area, and you know, on the first episode, I talked to Keith Russo, who graphs in New York and LA, and those are kind of like the two most active, huge hubs that I don't think many people can really relate to. Like even Boston has, you know, I think it's gotten more active with some of the movie stuff happening. You know, I'm not sure if you do much celebrity stuff, but you know, there's a little bit more activity than the four sports, but certainly not one of those big celebrity hubs. Like, can you talk about like what the, you know, even not the activity level of like who's in town, but just the graphing culture of, you know, the people that you're networking with. I get a lot of questions about people who are trying to break in and who are just trying to start. I know I felt some of those growing pains when I started about 7 years ago. You know, can you kind of talk about Boston, Rhode Island for, you know, someone who's watching at home saying like, hey, I want to go out there, but I don't want to be, you know, stabbed with a Sharpie if I ask people.
Oh yeah, well, Philly's pretty bad. I don't know if you're going to be interviewing anyone from there, but I've heard some stories about the Philly guys. So, yeah, I mean, like, you know, obviously yourself, you know, Softy is quite a character. He's a, you know, obviously there's not everyone from Boston who's going to be watching this.
Yeah, there's definitely a cast of characters, I think, locally everywhere.
There's a lot of, and I'm sure it's the same in every city, but I mean, you know, Softy, who's in the, you know, Mike Tag. I'm going to promote him right now. You find him on eBay, Tag for Life. But he's a notorious Boston dealer. He's been doing it for years. Sports, celebrities. I mean, he, you know, when it comes to finding who's in town, I mean, he gets it done. Yeah, there's no question about it.
I mean, my thoughts are, you know, just from my experience in Boston, you know, certainly, I think anywhere you go, like, there's going to be that level of competition, and people are going to be somewhat skeptical of the new guy on the block. Absolutely. I mean, it's still a numbers game. I mean, my position is that I really believe there's room for everyone that is really passionate about the hobby and willing to put the work in. So at least my experience in Boston has been, if you show up and, you know, people are seeing you out there, that they're willing to, you know, help you along and not, you know, you definitely have some people that, you know, want to be antisocial and are just there kind of for themselves. But, you know, I don't know how you feel, but I think just kind of the, you know, building a camaraderie with the people that you're waiting outside in 10-degree weather and trudging through snow, I think can only benefit you from kind of the whole experience of the hobby.
Right. It's certain to speak to Boston, and I mean, a little bit in Rhode Island. There's not that many guys from here that are pretty. I mean, you know, not to toot my own horn, but I think from this state, I'm certainly, you know, probably one of the few one of the bigger representatives of, you know,
that's why we got you on here, brother.
But it's a competitive environment, and it's almost like, you know, the sports that we go draft. It's, you know, you can attest to it when, you know, you got 25 people out there waiting for, you know, that jersey framed up behind you. And I can recall not too long ago, 2 years ago, waiting for Kevin Durant, and it was freezing. I mean, absolutely. Oh, the team was arriving at the hotel and absolutely freezing out. And I mean, people couldn't. You had your hands out there for 2 minutes with guys coming off the bus, and you could have got frostbite. Yeah. But I mean, you know, it's competitive. I mean, people are obviously, you know, there's pushing, there's going to be shoving. But at the end of the day, I mean, you're going to see the same cast of guys. If you're, like you said, if you're passionate about this, and you're going to put yourself in the situations to get who you want, you're going to be seeing the same guys pretty much everywhere you go. Mm-hmm. And I think, like anything, you got to kind of pay your dues and earn your respect. I mean, when you're the new guy, you know, to be honest, you know, when I was the new guy, not many people talked to me. You know, I had my few people that kind of, you know, brought me into it and showed me the ropes, you know, 2 or 3 people. And now, you know, pretty much everyone will engage with me.
Yeah.
They talk to me. You kind of just got to pay your dues. It's like anything else,
Mm-hmm.
you know. Kind of respect everyone, and you know, pay your dues for a little bit, and then you know you'll be accepted into into the group per se, you know. But like I said, I think it's just about, you know, obviously be respectful towards everyone, because you know, if you're, like you said, if you're gonna be passionate about it, you're gonna be doing this for a while, and you're gonna see the same faces. So there's no point in really burning any bridges early
Yeah,
on.
totally.
So,
So you talked about being out there in the cold, you know, on the verge of frostbite. I've been there, you've been there, a lot of the people that are tuned in have been there. Like, what is about autograph collecting that, you know, you're so passionate about? You know, I think just kind of the psychology of like why we're out doing this stuff is really fascinating. Have you ever kind of asked yourself that question? And
yeah, oh, absolutely.
especially when you don't get the graph, you ask yourself that question.
Yeah.
What the hell am I doing?
You know, you feel like an idiot sometimes. It's like, what am I doing out here? What are people walking by thinking? Oh, I've asked myself that a million times.
Have you come up with an answer?
Oh, yeah. You know, it's obviously the people who do this and are passionate about it. We love sports, and I think at some point all of us have had some sort of athletic background. You know, I used to play basketball and football. You know, obviously, you know, growing up, you know.
Although I would question seeing some of the guys out there. I don't think there was any
Oh,
athletic
right. That's very, very true. But I mean, at the very least,
no, I know what you're saying. Yeah.
If you haven't played the sport, you've followed it passionately as a kid.
Sure.
And kind of idolize these guys, and it's like, you know, you come back. It's pretty cool. I mean, most of my friends, you know, they don't get it per se, but every now and then when you're like, you know, oh, I got Peyton Manning's autograph, and I had like a little exchange with him. It's like, wow, that's awesome. And it's just, you know, you can trace it back to a memory where for that brief, whatever exchange, you know, that legendary Hall of Fame guy and you were, you know, interacting, or you know, this superstar and you had a brief interaction, and you know, the autograph is a part of that memory.
It triggers that memory. You can look at it and you can tell a story about it.
You were there.
Yeah.
You know?
I tell people that, you know, the most valuable collection I have is the collection of stories I have, and the autographs just trigger those. You know, they're just mementos that, you know, I can refer back to those, you know, those encounters.
I mean, it's no different with any other hobby. I mean, you can find anything that someone does and find a flaw in it, or, you know, call someone. I mean, people collect stamps, and people, oh, those are just, you know, little pieces of paper. What are you doing that? You know, people collect rocks or whatever. But you know, it's fun. I mean, it can be very stressful at times. I'm sure you can attest to that, but at the end of the day, it's pretty fun, and it's kind of it gets you away sometimes from you know, kind of the stress of the real.
Yeah, I think you know, it's funny. I use the when people have asked me a question like, "Why do you do it?" and the analogy I use is like when people go fishing. I think it's very similar. It's like you're out there, you know, in front of a hotel or out on the lake for hours on end, trying to catch the big one, so you can, you know, hold it up and take a picture, and everyone thinks you're cool and you feel really good about it. And some days you go home with an empty cooler and you hate life for a couple hours. But you know, in both hobbies, it's just about kind of finding enjoyment in that whole process and the chase, and just the whole experience out there. So that's my weird analogy to autograph collecting and fishing.
It's a comparable one.
Thanks. I want one of the stories that I saw that you put up on the Sports Graphic was about kind of a random encounter that you had with Chandler Jones of the New England Patriots, and you ended up getting an autograph. You weren't even expecting it. You know, I don't want to say you weren't prepared for it, because you were prepared for it, but it was a random encounter. So wanted you to talk about just kind of how you kind of always stay prepared for, you know, any kind of graphing opportunity. I know on kind of a small scale, carry a mini Sharpie on my key ring and have like one of the autograph cards in my wallet at all times. And I've definitely used those before. I know you have kind of a stockpile of supplies close in hand. Can you talk about kind of like what you always have around?
Absolutely. Photo paper. Those white sheets, that's big with me.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people have probably like seen that and heard that. Could you kind of talk about what those are? And
not even sure. I probably might have some of mine around my dorm room, but it's basically kind of what it sounds like. It's the photo paper. You can get an 8x10 size, which is perfect for people who print 8s normally, or 8.5x11, or even if you don't want to carry something that large, they do have 4x6, 5x7, just regular blank photo paper sheets. And
you get Staples or wherever,
even like Walmart, Target, whatever, they carry them. I mean, there's many different brands and whatever, but basically, I have a ton. I keep that in my trunk, and when you see someone kind of unexpected like that, Chandler Jones, go ahead, pull it out. I mean, some guys have a thing where they don't sign blank anything, index cards. Because
the concept is, it's a blank white sheet you get signed, hopefully in the middle somewhere, and then you go home to your own photo printer and you're actually printing out a photo that develops underneath the autograph. There's no mixing or anything because it's just on the. I know the first time I saw this, I was like, "Whoa!"
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting I actually first started doing it when I did the Patriots training camp, and years ago, like I kind of the first year I really did it, I was frustrated because, I mean, they carry a big roster into camp. You don't know who's going to, especially with the Patriots, you don't know who's going to show up where, and you don't know who's going to sign. You don't know what to carry. It's a big mess, really. And I realized, I could get these photo papers signed, and if it's someone decent, I can go home and print out the picture. And some people are very skeptical about it because they think it ruins the signature.
Yeah.
It actually prints underneath it.
Right.
So it doesn't ruin the signature at all, regardless of what. I've never got one in silver, but I obviously use blue. Always use blue.
Okay. Good tip.
But even in black, they've come out decent. But it's pretty cool. It's pretty interesting to watch like the first time. But actually, some tips I'll use, because I've actually ruined some decent graphs printing them the wrong way. If you find the photo you like, just take like a regular piece of computer paper and like sign it in the same direction.
Do a test run.
Or just like test run and make sure that you have it facing the right way for the photo you've selected.
Yeah.
And photo selections, high res stuff, anything over 1,000 by whatever. I mean, you can sort depending on what sites you use to get images. You can sort them by resolution. So always use high res stuff for them to come out. But yeah, I keep a bunch of those in my car handy. And baseballs. I always at least carry one ball in my trunk because you never know what you're going to see. I mean, I don't really run into many people being around Rhode Island, but that incident, Chandler Jones was at a strip mall with my girlfriend shopping around the holidays. And, luckily I've seen him before. I've gotten him before in person, so I knew what he looked like. And I thought he looked familiar, and I was like, "Oh, it's Chandler Jones." I ran out to my car, pulled the trunk, grabbed a Sharpie, which I always keep always keep Sharpies on hand in your car.
Sure.
Like you said, you have the mini keychain with the little Sharpie. Those works well too. So just always be prepared. You never know. Index cards sometimes work well too. I mean, I know a lot of people around Boston who use those and can get an index card signed. And if it's of someone, a big name that you don't expect to see, and you get it done, I mean, you can frame it or mat it with the photo of the person afterwards.
Yeah, totally.
So it's an option. So always be prepared. Hopefully, you run into someone, and when you are prepared and it works out, it feels pretty good. So
cool. So I wanted to ask you about kind of how you manage your collection. I mean, looking at your successes over the year, I mean, you're racking up in excess of 1,000. Maybe it's way more than that. It's at least 1,000
Yeah,
autographs a year.
unfortunately,
Thousands
it's
and thousands of
too much.
autographs. And you're also getting, because I know you collect all sports basically. You do some
Yeah,
minor league.
yeah, that's the one that really puts kind of inflates the numbers.
Yeah,
So
so I want you to touch on that. Like, it seems like the minor league collectors tend to get like really high quantities of guys. Like 20 cards. And they're younger players. They're willing to do it. I'm not saying it's a negative thing. I'm just curious about, like, all right, you give 20 cards of one guy, times 50 guys over the course of a season, or 100 guys or whatever. What do you do with this stuff?
good question, and I wish I had.
I know, the volume of my collection is probably like 2 weeks of you graphing is my my collection, and my wife is still trying to move it, further and further lower into the house, into the basement, and then now out into a storage unit.
Trust me, at times I'd much rather have that 2 weeks span worth of stuff versus what I get. It's to be honest, it's overwhelming. I'll be completely honest with you, and maybe you can do an interview with someone else who'll have a better answer than this, but especially doing the minor leagues where you get guys who, like you said, will sign like 20 other cards, regardless if it's a different card or the same card. They'll do it for you, no problem, with a smile on their face. And the end of normally, depending on what level of minor league ball I see, but if it's like double A, single A, I mean, I can get 100 easy without, within a few hours, like 2 or 3 hours. It's crazy. But it adds up, and it adds up way too fast to keep track of. At least for me, I still got piles at my house of stuff and boxes full of stuff that I haven't even, from like 2 summers ago doing baseball, that I haven't even put away.
So what is it about? Is it just about like numbers, like what is the motivation behind, like,
for some of it?
Even if you can get 20, do you want to get 20? Is it just like a badge to say like I have the most?
I mean, it depends on the person. I'd say early on for me it was kind of like that, to say, oh, like I got, good example. I can, but
I mean, the hope is that someone turns into like an amazing player, and you say, oh, 50 Albert Pujols is from 10 years ago when he was in the minor leagues or whenever.
Like, I'm trying to think of, like Andrew McCutcheon.
Okay.
He was a pretty good signer. And not even like, when he was in lower levels, he would sign like, a page of card or something. I didn't end up seeing him until he was in AAA. But I got like 4 or 5 cards in one shot, baseball and stuff like that. And which doesn't sound like too much, but I mean, at the time it was like, oh, that's really cool. It's like 4 or 5 of, they were all different cards and whatever.
Yeah.
But then you start seeing like, you get on sports, on these websites, and you see guys that, oh, they got, this guy did 20, this guy did 24, or something like that. And I think for early on, it was about just boosting the numbers and say like, oh, I could get this many. But as the years gone on, it's kind of like I'm picky about if I'm going to hand someone that much.
Yeah.
First of all, I like to help people a lot through 50/50s.
Okay.
Which, I don't know if people watching.
Yeah, if you could explain that to people who don't know.
Yeah, for 50/50s, for people who don't know, someone will send you, say, 4 of something, cards, photos, whatever, and you keep 2 for yourself, and you send 2 back, and the person will send, per request, your request will send, self-addressed stamped envelopes. You can just pop whatever they have back in and send it right back to them. So on the, message boards we're on, minor league autograph collecting is huge. And there's a ton of guys who do it. And, obviously people can't see all the different players and all the different leagues. So I offer my services in exchange for some, and the people that I work with year to year, they send me bulk. I mean, there's not that I really want to get them done. You know, I don't want to keep.
But you can get them done, so you do get them done.
But, you know, I just offer my help. And
yeah, no, that's awesome. Very generous.
I remember this one guy a couple of years ago sent me like 60 cards of a Giants prospect named Henry Sosa, who I don't even know if he's still. I think last I heard he was like pitching in Japan or something. So he didn't pan out.
Yeah.
But on that same team was Brandon Crawford, who, you know, World Series shortstop with the Giants, and Madison Bumgarner. And Crawford was a signing machine.
Yeah.
That same guy sent me like 60 of that Henry Sosa guy. He sent me about 40 Brandon Crawford.
Wow.
Believe it or not, Brandon Crawford actually signed like all 40 of those cards, or I think like 20 something in one shot, and the next time I saw him, I handed him the other 20. And so I ended up keeping 20, and, you know, the guy gets his 20 back. But now I'm stuck, you know, until last year, the last year and a half, sitting there with over 20 Brandon Crawford signed cards.
It's almost like building like a stock portfolio, where it's like you're buying all of these stocks in companies that have potential. Who knows? And is that part of it? Like, are you waiting for someone to be a World Series champion to then flip them, or are you just they become bigger parts of your own collection now that their name has some cachet now?
I personally, I'll flip them every now. Like a guy like Crawford, I sold like at least 10 cards of. I actually threw like a lot together of like different cards he had, but I still have more than I'd probably like to.
Yeah.
But, you know, for me, I don't mind. I don't sell a lot. Like you attested to, I get like, you know, a couple thousand autographs a year. If I sell 50, 100, that's like 5-10% of what I get during the year. So it's not like I'm in it to sell. But what you said, it's about, you know, it's almost like a stock portfolio. And the way, that's kind of the way I approach it. When it's the right time to buy or the right time to sell, mostly sell, you know, obviously on my side of it. But, you know, a guy like Jesus Montero is another good example, at least from my end, where, you know, he was a Yankees, big prospect with the New York Yankees. He made his debut with the Yankees, and he hit like 330 in the September call-up time. And, I mean, being a Yankees prospect, was one, you know, top Yankees prospect, and he was playing well, you know, time to sell. Now he's a Seattle Mariner. His stock goes down.
Yeah, you hit that window.
And another good example, Clay Buck ultimately threw his no-hitter. I had a few of them. And obviously being a Red Sox pitcher, no-hitter, that was big. So, you know, as a guy who sees, you know, Pawtucket Red Sox being in Rhode Island, and I see a lot of their minor league ball. And like I said, I don't sell a lot, but, you know, it's money that you can put back into the hobby, because I'm sure you can attest to it. You spend a lot of money in this hobby. It's not the cheapest thing in the world. But.
Yeah, I mean, you know, one of my regrets, you know, looking back on my first, you know, 2 years really, was kind of cheaping out on stuff. I mean, you know, people have heard me talk about, you know, using the non-official Rawlings Major League Baseballs. You know, there's really no alternative, you know, to the official one. Your autographs are going to disappear, and just, you know, kind of skip. There you go.
Yeah,
that's the only option, and just kind of skimping out on stuff. You know, I have a buddy who, you know, kind of, you know, and it's a risk too, because like I didn't want to carry too much overhead and have a closet full of unsigned jerseys. You know, for people I wouldn't run into. So, you know, I typically stick to photos and stuff like that. But, you know, you have to kind of weigh the two. Like, you know, if I go for, you know, a Kevin Durant or a Dwayne Wade and I have a photo and you have a jersey, you know, yeah, you put the money up front, but you're going to have a nice item, you know, 10 or 20 years from now, and I have, you know, another page in my binder that is cool, but it's not the same as, you know, some like premium piece. So it's certainly, you know, to your point, can get expensive. We're running up against the clock. I have a couple more questions for you. One is, you're a college student now, down in Rhode Island. Wanted to ask you just about how you are balancing kind of a very time-intensive hobby like autograph collecting. You go out a lot. I know this has been a challenge of mine constantly, just with family, and had a baby 7 months ago. So I've wound way down. But you're a college student. There's other stuff going on at college, and relationships and family and stuff like that. Like, how do you balance it and kind of prioritize when you go out, and when you kind of say, hey, I don't need to get 40 more of this minor league today?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's I guess I've kind of found the pretty good happy medium, I guess you could say, where I'm not gonna lie, there's certainly been occasions where I've skipped class to go get something, but it has certainly been for a minor leaguer. But
I've never taken a long lunch break or anything.
But sometimes it's got to if there's something you really want to do and you make time for, and school's obviously being a second semester senior now, I'm got a kind of a big schedule on my hand. I'm doing got interviews with companies, and fortunately I haven't been I'm in a relationship now. But fortunately, that aspect I usually try to stay single because I know that ties up time and money, and it's beer money runs me enough for the weekend. So I try not to. I try to balance it all out, but it works out. Usually on I'm graphing. I'm not staying out to hotel. I'm not staying up at hotel until like the wee hours of the morning. I'm reasonable with it. I call it quits. Probably a little earlier than some people do sometimes, but it's so I can get back to school and either do what I got to do there academically, or if I want to hang out with my friends on the weekend. Which and usually the spots that when I get autographs during the school year, it's usually on the weekends anyway, so I have more time freed up. And luckily, I go to school in Rhode Island. I live in Rhode Island, so family's close by, and
Great.
So it's not too hard to juggle, I guess. If you know what you're doing, you can manage it all.
So last question is, I like to ask the people who have been doing this for a while, and I think from an observer, at least I'm like, Andrew, you know what you're doing. You're kind of like at the top of the game here. But what are you going to be doing differently in 2013? Like, do you have any like autograph related resolutions? Like, is it going to quantity over quality, like we talked about? Scaling back on some of that stuff, or is there, how are you kind of changing your strategy this year, if at all?
Yeah, I was going to say I'm not sure if I'm going to be changing it too much. I expect to have less time on my hands, so I probably won't be doing as much. I'll probably be cutting back on the type of the amount of minor league ball I'll probably see, and I'm probably going to definitely going to scale back on those quantities and as much time as I put into it, because I probably won't have as much time. So kind of pick my spots better in terms of what I'm going to hit, but in terms of goals, it's tough to say. You don't know. Sports-wise, luckily, there's schedules. Who's going to come in year in and year out. But,
sure.
Fortunately, I've been lucky where some of the targets I've had over the years, Derek Jeter, you mentioned. I'm a big Jets fan. So Joe Namath was.
I need to switch this up. I've interviewed 2 Yankees fans in a row, which is terrible. Luckily, you have really good information. So that's awesome. So special thanks to you for joining us today. Shared great info. I know everyone who's tuned in learned a lot. Thank you for tuning into the Autograph University Masterclass. Andrew, thanks so much.
No
really
problem,
appreciate
Matt.
it.
And thank you to all the viewers, and hopefully I was a little bit of help. And stay warm out there if you're from the New England area. I know it's pretty cold and we've had the blizzards lately. So, but yeah, thank you, and thank all the viewers, and good luck graphing in 2013, everybody.
Well, that's another episode of the Autograph University Masterclass. big thank you to Andrew George for joining us. I know I learned a lot, and I hope you did too. You can check him out at wjmfradio.com. He's talking sports Mondays 4 to 6 Eastern. Andy and the J-Dogs. Definitely head on over there. And check out autographu.com for tips, guides, stories from my own experiences graphing, everything you need to improve your autograph collection and meet celebrities. And sign up for our newsletter at autographu.com/newsletter. Stay up to date. Never miss an episode of the Autograph University Masterclass. Thanks again for tuning in. Until next time, be well and let the ink flow.